His last words being, "It's the law." Greetings, this is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers, I'm your host, and today we'll take a look at a recent film, Les Miserables, based on Victor Hugo's novel. This film starred Liam Neeson as Jean Valjean, Geoffrey Rush as Inspector Javert, Uma Thurman as Fantine, Claire Danes as Cosette, and Hans Matheson as a young revolutionary. This film is very well made historical piece, and it's a bit grimmer, grittier, and shaded than the other recent historical piece, The Man in the Iron Mask. But at any rate, I think well executed in terms of production, camera work, lighting, and so forth to achieve a realistic look. The acting, I think, is strong, with perhaps Claire Danes being the least effective. The storyline is something like this. It's fairly well known, actually. A man is tossed into prison for stealing a loaf of bread. He manages to escape. The burden is pursued for 20 years by an inspector, and the difficulties between the two are resolved in a surprising twist at the end. The film opens up with Liam Neeson's Jean Valjean appearing in a very wild and desperate condition. He's ragged, dirty, fuzzy, and he's out on the streets in a generally rustic area. He's looking for food, he's hungry. He is advised by a person who he had asked for food, to go knock at a door just down the way a piece. It turns out to be the residence of a priest. The door is opened by his housekeeper. She's a little frightened at his appearance and would basically have shooed him away, but the old priest happened by at that time and invited the desperate, hungry Jean Valjean to enter. This priest then allows him to eat his fill. In the process, he notices the silver, flatware, and other indications of wealth within the priest's abode. And that night, he starts bagging, stealing as much silver plate, silverware as he can, flatware. He is discovered by the priest, who he smacks and escapes with the loot. He is subsequently captured by men-at-arms, gendarmes, and returned to the abode of the priest. The gendarmes tell the priest that they had captured the guy with this bag full of silver flatware that he says the priest had given him. To the great surprise of the gendarmes, the priest confirms this and says to the man, Valjean, why didn't you take the silver plate and the silver candlesticks also, and basically chided him for walking off without these other goods. He then instructed his housekeeper to go and fetch this silverware and put it in a bag for the man to take. Well, Valjean, is a little stunned by this, and so are the police, very surprised. The gendarmes release Valjean, and he goes off with all the loot and with much food for thought. Also, it turns out that this priest is not only tough, but a wise fellow. The camera cuts. We have a period of time passing of several years, and we find Jean Valjean, now prosperous, the owner of a plate factory. He's the mayor of this provincial town, and a well-respected figure. He's using another name also. He has a factory which is rather advanced for the time. He is humane to his workers. He has, for the most part, female workers. There is a quid pro quo, that is, that these needy women who work for him or are given jobs in the factory must live a virtuous life. As mayor, he is thought to be a kind of a quiet, strong, silent type, and his days of prosperity and content are about to end, because the papers of the new inspector in the area, Javert, are given to him. This particular individual, played by Geoffrey Rush, is a man who is strong in the law, supporting of the law, rigid in his understanding of it. The performance by Geoffrey Rush is quite good. I think, however, that somebody such as James Wood could have probably done as well. At any rate, Geoffrey Rush does present his papers to the mayor. The mayor is somewhat informal, and this is really not well suited to the temperament of Inspector Javert. He sort of makes a note of that in a negative way. This is the sort of the beginning of increasing internal rankling felt by Inspector Javert toward this mayor. Now, there are a couple of instances in this particular story in which both the Liam Neeson character, Valjean, and also Geoffrey Rush have flashbacks to the days at the prison quarry, for as it turns out, Inspector Javert was at this prison quarry at the same time that Jean Valjean was. He does not immediately recognize the mayor as Jean Valjean. The appearance, the time, all different. But this would be a recognition which comes in time and causes problems for the mayor. But his first problem brewing is at the factory, because the character played by Uma Thurman is found out by the factory overseer, the woman who sort of keeps an eye on the girls, the young women. It turns out that she has had a child out of wedlock, a love child, has kept it secret, has been supporting this child, and this causes the overseer to bring the woman Fantine before the mayor in his capacity as the factory owner, Valjean's new persona, and he listens. He's somewhat distracted by the appearance of Inspector Javert. He does not show too much compassion to Fantine. In fact, she's hardly allowed to defend herself. She spits in his face and is kind of shown the door. He is sort of forgiving of this episode, but Nevertheless, he does not fully understand her situation. Now, Fantine is in a pretty tough spot at this point in time. She lives in a bare sort of rooming abode. She has a bedroom. It's a very budget. The landlord is asking for money because she's young and shapely, he makes it plain that he will accept sexual favors in lieu of hard cash, and this she provides, and this is the first step really leading to a disastrous life. She is also filled with the need to find some means of hard currency so she can support her daughter Cosette, who is being watched over by a couple. She thinks that they're being conscientious in this effort, but as it turns out, they are characters who are rather Dickensian. The most I've seen in French material, and they're gougers and they're mean, and the little girl is forced to work, and actually later on when the rescue of this little girl occurs, it kind of called to my mind the story of Cinderella and the difficulties she had with her stepsisters and so forth. But at any rate, she has to, Fantine, earn some money, and she goes out on the street to do so, and of course she has difficulties at first, but repetition in time and so forth, it becomes easier for her to deal with, I suppose. This is not easy work. It's difficult, and this is made clear by an episode in which she is sick and trembling, and she has become gaunt, and the landlord is demanding currency and no longer will accept sexual favors, and she is forced to go out. She meets three drunken sports, and in her trying to plea her profession, she is mocked and dealt with in a bad fashion, both by mouth and hand. One of the drunks gets a handful of snow and dirty ice, sludge, and forces it down her dress, which is her only working dress, her only means of going out and finding customers. And this causes her to strike out at him. And this all occurs in the presence of a good gendarme, so to speak, and Inspector Javert. I will say parenthetically, try to imagine one of these young lawyers for the Justice Department, a young woman who had her only power black dress befouled. Think of her dismay if she had this occur and had to go before a judge. So it was even more desperate for Fantine. She is threatened with arrest by the inspector, and he is fortunately for her overruled as Jean Valjean's character comes on the scene, and as mayor does so. Now, I will say in regard to this particular occupation that she is not selling her body, but a service agreed upon in terms of money and time and or quantity, units thereof. And it's a very tough occupation for the mind. And this kind of little episode kind of flashed the mental difficulties that accrue to this profession, to the girls, and why it is so often that they resort to alcohol and drugs to help them cope. The use of alcohol, cocaine, and so forth like this kind of trap them also. But the customers are sometimes unpleasant, as these sports were, and sometimes unclean, sometimes kinky, sometimes dangerous. So it all can lead to much in the way of mental stress, putting aside, of course, the moral matter itself. But as one professional once told me, egret, they can't be too small or too quick. The pressure is there. But at any rate, Javert took Fantine to his abode and instructed his housekeeper to look after the sick, trembling woman. It is only at this point in time that he learns about her life, how his firing her from the factory has not only been counterproductive but injurious, how she had been forced into this situation, how she had a daughter, Cosette, that she was trying to support, and so forth. He determines that he is going to go and get Cosette and bring her back. He is beginning to fall in love with her, at least he thinks so, and he thinks that by getting Cosette it might give her the strength to recuperate. But it unfortunately cannot save the woman who is dying. He does take from her a necklace with a cameo, which is a sort of a gesture she wishes to give to her daughter, a gesture of family and generation and continuity, and something with which she hopes at a later date her daughter will perceive with the love which she bore for the daughter. But at any rate, they are separated now, and the daughter is going up with little in the way of knowledge of her mother, and we have Valjean going there to rescue her, to fetch her, and to be a sort of avuncular figure. At this very time has also occurred a good deal of pressure from Inspector Javert. For Javert had been getting increasingly suspicious of the mayor. Javert had said that he basically thought the mayor was one Valjean that he had known in the prison quarry. For there was a certain incident earlier in this town before the Fantine matter unfolded as it did, that we have a fellow named Lafitte who gets trapped under a wagon, a horse cart, and the mayor lifts the cart, exhibiting the kind of strength that recalled in Inspector Javert's mind the fellow Valjean he had known in prison and the great strength of this particular prisoner. It caused him to look a little bit sharper, and was one strong clue in a bunch of clues that there was something fishy about this mayor. He was implacable in his pursuit, his interest in this particular prisoner. He goes to Paris and voices an opinion, almost accusing the mayor, and although at this time Paris is not willing to move on the mayor, the evidence is not conclusive, though it's interesting, and it appears that Jean Valjean has either destroyed vital statistic evidence thereof, official, or managed to forge some. But at any rate, it was not possible for the inspector to nail him So the political interests of the police gendarmerie was to let it lie, and this occurred, but Inspector Javert had brought himself into attention by the high authorities as a man who was a good investigator and so forth. Now, the pressure is continued by Javert, however, and he goes after the mayor, and the mayor knows it. Valjean has taken the time to liquidate his holdings, and he has turned his factory into an employee-owned institution, of which there should be more, I think. But at any rate, he is now full of loot, liquid assets, and he goes and gets Cosette. Cosette is a child forced to work while the children of the couple who keep her are playing and having a great time. So she is happy to be relieved of life with this couple. She goes off with Cosette. Now, Valjean does have papers to establish his right here. He is a thoughtful and practical man. In fact, and it's kind of hard to conceive this character that we meet, this wild, desperate Valjean at the beginning of the film, and this mayor and factory owner. It seems a little bit far-fetched, actually. But at any rate, he gets Cosette and the loot, and they head for Paris. It just so happens that about the same time, Inspector Javert is given a promotion and is called to Paris to take a job. Well, for some reason or other, Valjean heads for Paris, and Javert expects him to do so. So he has the gendarmes all along the walled city, old city, to be on the lookout, to be alert for Valjean. You have to present papers to get into Paris in these days. It seems like in every Masonic regime that the tyranny of paperwork is a must, no matter where or what country, Western or communist or what have you. But at any rate, here we have the same situation. Valjean does not want to present any papers. He tells Cosette to grab him around the neck, and he scales the wall and leaps over what looks like an abyss onto the roof of a nunnery. It just so happens that the nunnery employs Lafitte as a groundskeeper, maintenance type fellow. This job had been gotten for Lafitte after his accident where the horse cart fell on him by the mayor, and now it's time for him to return the favor. And he does so, claiming Valjean and Cosette as his relatives. They are given temporary job at the nunnery also, and Inspector Javert, in his new role in Paris, kind of chills out on the chase and goes about the other business, because there are revolutionaries running around Paris, and he had to thwart their aims. Valjean, of course, has a bag full of loot, so it does not take him too long after things settle down to establish himself in a nice pad. He takes Cosette, he plans to give her all the best, and so forth. She grows up into a woman, the woman being Claire Danes. Claire Danes, gets interested in a street revolutionary played by Hans Matheson, who is orating to a crowd, trying to recharge them with the revolutionary fervor of 1789 and thereabouts. As one would expect in government, there are spies about. Inspector Javert has undercover agents about, And I call to mind to young folks that governments always seem to have massive numbers of spies about, and recommend once again Mr. Frank Donner's The Age of Surveillance, which came out around 1980. He was a lawyer for the ACLU, I think, but at any rate, it's a good source material for those who'd like to see about government spying. And I'm sure there are others. But this regime in Paris at the time is, in France, is not different, and they have their undercover people about. One is attached to the group that this revolutionary orator is mingling with, and of course they are planning revolution. Now, when Valjean learns that Cosette is hanging out with this guy, he has fear for what it may mean both for her and for himself, and he cautions her against it and tries to get her not to see this guy. She is pretty much stuck on him. She does not understand his situation, thinks that he's just trying to spoil her life and so forth, and she wants to get out and live, and hot-blooded young girl and so forth. Well, he can't stop this, apparently, and just as the spies of Inspector Javert are particularly interested in this orator revolutionary, they become interested also in his girlfriend, Cosette, and this leads them to the Jean Valjean, a character with his new identity. Skipping ahead now, a fellow ride up on a horse with a blood-red flag, soon put before a firing squad and all shot down dead. Takes Cosette with the approval of Valjean and heads for that citadel of masonry, England. Mercy to Valjean and breaking the law, suicide.